Early this week, I attended a professional retreat in Atlanta. The opening icebreaker activity began with each participant selecting a small lapel pin with a saying on it. There were 30 or so pins. Some were playful, some biting, some thoughtful, some serious, and others inspirational. We were to choose the pin with the saying that best fit us. As we went around the room introducing ourselves, we explained why we chose the pin we did. So allow me to share some of the sayings that were on the pins on the table. If not now, when? Your feelings are valid. Powered by caffeine and sarcasm. I am not responsible for what my face does when you talk. It's okay to make mistakes. Not a morning person. Sarcastic by nature. I'm creating the life of my dreams. Be a good human. You do not have a soul. You are a soul. Work hard, dream big. My trauma makes me hilarious. We can do hard things. Live in the present. Like I said, some playful, others biting, others inspirational. You may be wondering which pin I chose. I chose the pin that said, be kind. And when it was time to go around and introduce ourselves, I said that we can't control a lot of what happens to us or what happens in the world around us, but we can choose to be kind. In good times, in conflict, in struggle, and in triumph, we can be kind. And if more people were to be kind, I think the world would be a lot better. I included the fact that in choosing these words, I was not simply thinking about this as a directive to others, to those who would see the pin, but also an important reminder to myself to be kind. Being kind is not something that comes naturally to all of us. And even for those to whom it does come naturally, there must be times when it feels really hard to be kind. I found myself reflecting on my pin choice as I read through this week's Torah portion. This week's portion is Va-eira. It is the second portion in the book of Exodus, and we read about God telling Moses that the time has come to free the ancient Israelites from slavery in Egypt. Moses is told to go to Pharaoh and utter the famous words that we all know from the Passover story. Let my people go. Moses replies to God that Pharaoh will not listen to him because he has a speech impediment and that he is not the right person to lead the people. God responds by assigning Moses' brother Aaron to accompany him and be the spokesperson. Aaron and Moses appear before God and do as God tells them, telling Pharaoh to let the people go, and Pharaoh, of course, refuses. As a consequence, God sends terrible plagues upon Egypt: blood, frogs, locusts, cattle disease, and hail. Let's just say it was not the best time to visit Egypt. With each plague, God hardens Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh refuses to let the Israelites go. The plagues that we read about in Va-eira intensify as the story, and God actively now intervenes and attempts to break the impasse between Moses and Pharaoh, thereby demonstrating God's might and sovereignty. Setting up this extraordinary historical drama, chapter 6, verse 13 says, "So the Eternal spoke to both Moses and Aaron in regard to the Israelites and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, instructing them to deliver the Israelites from the land of Egypt." The very next verse says, and I quote, "The following are the heads of their respective clans, the sons of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, Enoch and Palu, Herzon and Carmi. These are the families of Reuben." Huh? What? Strange, don't you think? As we're beginning to lean forward to find out what's going to go on, anticipating all the action, the text backs off and digresses. And we're given instead a dry, terribly detailed genealogy of Moses and Aaron. Troubled by this apparent non sequitur, Rabbi Ben Hollander says, what's the purpose of this timeout in the text? He wonders why the shift, why the disconnect. In a Dvar Torah on this Parsha, Rabbi Hollander urges us to take advantage of this break to reflect on what might have been the content of the charge that God issued to Moses and Aaron. What was meant by God's statement in regard to the Israelites and Pharaoh? It is time, reminding us that leading up to this, the Israelites would not even listen to Moses because their spirits were so crushed by cruel bondage. Rabbi Hollander also urges us to reflect on the fact that Pharaoh not only refused to let the people go, but responded to their leader's plea by intensifying their suffering, demanding that they make bricks without being supplied with the necessary straw. Rabbi Hollander addresses the key question, what would you have suggested to Moses and Aaron for dealing with the dispirited people and the unrelenting Pharaoh? What would you have said to tell them how to do this? Would you be gentle or would you be tough? He answers his own question by positing Rashi's Midrash and says that God's charge to Moses and Aaron commanded them to deal with the people with patience and restraint, and to deal with Pharaoh with respect. This advice reflects the rabbinic conviction that God requires that we show respect for others and have faith in the possibility of change, even in the face of an impasse and hardship. The rabbis are so convinced that this is the proper approach to interpersonal and international relations that they feel it applies even to this extreme situation of slavery and a dictator. We learn that the Jerusalem Talmud goes even further, stating that there is not only a general approach, but a concrete content to God's charge. Based on a verse in Jeremiah, God's charge is the commandment to the Israelites that requires the 7-year freeing of future slaves. This comes from the conviction that the basic requirement for the Israelites to be free from Pharaoh and to become a nation is a commitment by them to act differently if they had slaves, and by extension, toward anyone over whom they have power. Rabbi Hollander suggests it is as though the pause in this narrative gives Moses and Aaron a chance to prepare the Israelites for freedom by teaching them the lesson of slavery, namely that empowerment must include empathy and responsibility towards others. Fundamentally, our story of having been slaves in Egypt and knowing the ugliness and suffering of slavery means we, with empathy and kindness, sensitivity, understanding, and strength, must confront the hardships and challenges that surround us. If we do so any other way, we are no better than Pharaoh. May we choose to be kind and use that kindness to inspire more kindness, and bit by bit, with strength and conviction and commitment, add more goodness and blessing to the world. Shabbat Shalom.